Wolfenstein: The New Order is a game. And when I say that it's a game, I mean it's a game. Now, if I had to, in one sentence, explain to you what this game was, I would say that it is great, with a thumbs up. I'm giving it a thumbs up. If you're the kind of guy that just scrolls to the end of a review or video and then ends up just seeing the score and then dips out, then there you go. I gave you the score at the very beginning. You already know this game is great with a thumbs up. If you want more specific details about the game, continue to feast your eyes upon the rest of this review. If not, you can exit. See you later. Bye, 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 bye. Now, if you're sticking around, I'm going to talk a little bit about Wolfenstein: The New Order and why it is. Welcome to my first Bard's Backlog reviews. I am JR, the Game Bard. I am here to talk about games that I love, games that have been building up in my backlog that I haven't really taken the time to actually go back and play, and so I'm using this as an opportunity to do just that. Now, I'm wearing a collar because I just got back from an interview, so if you don't like that, well, this is a little bit more of an intimate setup. The camera's right here, hello, and I'm right here into the mic, hello. This is something that is going to be a little bit different from what I'm normally doing. With my honest reviews, it's going to be a lot more professional. Okay, I don't know if professional is the right word, probably not. It's going to be a lot more relaxed setting, and that's because I want to get across these ideas, and I want to kind of just take some more time to explain the games that I'm playing. Welcome to my YouTube channel. The Wolfenstein series is a long-standing IP by id Software, the developer that also put together Doom, and it is now being developed by Machine Games. They started off with the Wolfenstein: The New Order, which came out on PS3, Xbox 360, PS4, Xbox One, and the PC. The conceit of the original game, the one that id Software had created way back in the day, Wolfenstein 3D, is simple. Basically, go into a bunch of rooms, kill a bunch of Nazis with a bunch of different guns. All in then glorious and now quaint, but honestly kind of primitive 3D. So what does the creator of Doom, which is basically the same concept with sci-fi and guns, decide to do with this cherished franchise? Well, they give it over to Machine Games, and Machine Games decides to do some pretty surprising stuff with it, actually. Now, I know what you're thinking. Old game is old, right? Why are we talking about it in 2018? This game came out a long time ago. It's been 4 years, and there's been DLC. There's been a sequel that just came out last year. Why are you reviewing this game, Albard? Well, let me tell you the tale of why I decided to play Wolfenstein: The New Order. Don't worry, I'll keep it short-ish, I promise. So I've always been hugely interested in history things, so Wolfenstein, right up my alley. I'm always kind of iffy when it comes to alternate history stuff, so I'll take more time to kind of look it out. And at the time when this game came out, shooters are not my MO. I'm more of a platformer guy, so I was already playing a shooter actually at the time. It was Call of Duty, and I had my fill. I didn't need any more shooters in my life, so because of that, I skipped it. And now, with the release of the Switch, I'm a huge Nintendo Switch fan. You'll see that as I post more videos involving that. I started to buy up basically everything I could for the console, and then I found out that they were releasing Doom on the Switch, as well as Wolfenstein 2. Okay, cool. Wolfenstein 2 was getting a lot of hype at the time. I thought that was pretty cool, but not exactly hugely interested until I played Doom. And then I found out that this was a very, very solid arcadey type shooter that I ended up enjoying quite a bit. And so because of that, I decided, hey, let's see what else Bethesda is doing. Doom, of course, was created by the original team that made Wolfenstein. And since I was falling in like with Doom, I decided to check out Wolfenstein. Plus, the first game was on sale on the PSN. So I was like, why not? Let's pick it up, let's try it out. And so over the weekend I decided to play it, and I am glad I did. Sales are the best, you know that? In any category, sales are the best. Now, I'm reviewing the first game, Wolfenstein The New Order, before even touching the second one. I haven't even bought it yet, so consider this a pure, undefiled hot take on an old game. So I guess that makes this a cold take. My backlog reviews, I'm going to get a little more into it. These are going to be a little more conversational than my honest reviews, which are more, I don't want to say the term professional because they're kind of ridiculous, but those are like scripted. I'm taking the time to script those out. I'm taking the time to put in some effort, and kind of like they're going to be not so much focused on me. These are more thoughts and impressions and ideas and a review of these older games that I'm going to be a little more in-depth on. Let me just say that if you have not played this game and you like shooters, then go pick up this game right now. Why are you sitting here watching this YouTube video? You should go pick up this game because it's cheap, it's a quick download, it only takes 6 to 9 hours to beat, and it's a thumbs up. I gave it a thumbs up already. Now, why is that? Why did I give it a thumbs up? Well, one of the biggest reasons is just because it's so much fun to play. The actual running and gunning aspect of it feels tight and responsive with just enough gun variety. Plus, you can dual wield shotguns and pistols and your assault rifles, which makes you feel like Scourge the Executioner.
My stuff. Ooh. I'm particularly fond of these. Des and Troy. You see, when you put them together, they destroy.
One gun, which is called the Laser Kraftwerk. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. It's all German, whatever. This gun is definitely the star of the show, and that's because it's an electric welding gun that actually turns into a lightning ball flinging WMD, which stands normally for Weapon of Mass Destruction. So that's not going to work here because that's usually for nukes. I'm going to say Weapon of Marginal Destruction. Yeah. It does need to be recharged a lot, this Laser Kraftwerk, which is interesting. We'll talk about that, but it's definitely the gun that makes this the most unique. There are a few other gun types later in the game that I won't spoil here, and when you throw in a few other moments of on-rails shooting and one brief moment of massive robot destruction, the gameplay adds up to a satisfying experience throughout the whole thing. But the biggest reason to play this game, and honestly, this was incredibly surprising to me, is the story. I was blown away at how much I enjoyed the characters and the world that they inhabit. It's of course an alternate timeline where the Nazis win World War II by developing the atomic bomb first and by finding solutions to some inventions that actually, if you go back and read the history, a lot of these things they were actually trying, which is insane. The Nazis are crazy. I'd recommend going back and kind of just like looking at a couple things. Don't become a Nazi. But do go back and read about their history and kind of just figure out some things about them because it is really interesting. In the game, they find solutions to some inventions that give them the upper hand in the war, and so because of that, they end up winning, and that's how the game starts out. It's set in a near unrecognizable 1960s because of everything that's going on. There's a concrete-infused tyranny, and I'm not going to say exactly what that means, in the Nazi regime, as well as some sci-fi elements like robot dogs, giant robots, giant robot dogs, the moon, which I guess isn't sci-fi because it's real, but here they have Nazis in space, which means that the Nazis are on the moon. They have a moon base, which is great. I love that they actually went for that. It's ridiculous, but it testifies to the game's solid story that it actually worked. It actually made sense within the story, and that's what I appreciated about it. It's well written. They sold me on it. And with a lot of really other great, strong story beats and emotional turns that did a lot to add to the overall experience, the story blew me away. Characters like your love interest Anya, who's a total boss, by the way, the mentally impaired Max Haas, even the main character, BJ Blazkowicz, which sounds like the most video gamey name, and who should literally just be a Nazi-killing, boring, generic white protagonist or whatever. He ended up being a very unique and fleshed out individual who inhabited a real world that was actually overrun by Nazis. It made sense, and I was sold, and it was great. My favorite character, however, has got to be the relentless Frau Engel. And let me just say, she is fantastic. There's a whole other antagonist in the game. I don't even remember his name. Who cares? But he's not anything as near as good as Frau Engel, and actually I think that's why she plays into the second game quite a bit. Spoilers, she does survive this one. But she is nuts in all the right way. She's not even the main antagonist of the game, but she has the greatest arc throughout the entire game, and a lot of great payoffs that I won't spoil here, though if you've seen anything about the game or its sequel, you may have a couple of ideas. Now, she's an exception. Not all the characters stand out. Some of them are pretty generic, with several kind of being one note, but they do all really help round out a narrative that I cared about by the end of this game, and in fact tugged at my heartstrings a little. I started to get a little bit emotional at the end because of the way that it set it up, and it was set up in ways I didn't expect. I am a huge proponent for compelling storylines in games, and I'm so glad we've gotten to the point in the gaming industry where we're beginning to deliver those. We have games like the Telltale series, we have games like Detroit Become Human, even God of War earlier blew my mind with how great it was, and Wolfenstein does more for it in that regard than you'd think. And in fact, I think that some of the trends we've seen, you can very much track them back to a time around this period when Wolfenstein was doing some of this work already. So that's why you should buy the game, because it's fun to play and it's got a great storyline. Why shouldn't you buy the game? That's the next section. Now, if you're already interested in what I've said, if you already enjoy some of the things that I've said and you can tell in your mind, okay, yes, I'm going to enjoy this game, then don't let what I'm about to say deter you. Instead, go get the game. It's great. These other things I'm going to point out are smaller things, just like little gripes that I had that I want you to be aware of, but that I don't want to stop you from actually enjoying the game. These are all smaller, minor gripes that on their own don't do much to inhibit the enjoyability of a game. I don't even know if enjoyability is a word, but there you go. There's enough grievances to warrant a warning, which is why I'm sitting here. Some of my more minor gripes are that they're just, well, one, there isn't enough variety in the guns and the enemies, which may not sound like a big deal, but when you have only like 4 main guns basically that you're using throughout the entire thing, I mean, there's just enough that it's fine. Since the gunplay is so tight, it feels good to actually shoot the guns to play, to move around. But the guns themselves, I don't know, I just kept wishing that there was a little bit more. I mean, and the enemies as well. I mean, there were generic enemies, but the guns especially, I can deal with slaying the generic Nazi over and over and over, as long as I have a variety of ways to do it. But for 90% of the game, you're relegated to using the same assault rifle and shooting Nazis with that. I have dual wielding options, sure. And the occasional heavy weapon that I can pick up, sure. And like I said, we have that electric welding gun as well, which is kind of cool. But it just wasn't enough for me. Maybe I'm spoiled by Borderlands and Ratchet & Clank, 2 of my favorite games of all time, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. Now, I should also mention that the game has a classic pick up your ammo, pick up your health setting to it. So you can't just run over the ammo and pick it up. You can't just heal as you hide behind cover. You need to actually go pick up health, which is a more classic feel, but I do know that that actually makes things difficult for some people. So if that's not something you're interested in, just keep that in mind. Personally, I actually kind of like it. It makes it like, I don't know, I'm OCD, and like I said, like in Borderlands, you're always picking stuff up. Kind of the same thing here, and I kind of like that. Top that all off with a couple of underwhelming boss fights, older graphics. They haven't aged the best. They work serviceably well, and of course it hasn't been too long, so it's not going to be like PS2 level of a change. And then several moments in the game that really drag, honestly, including an entire underwater level that I just felt controlled atrociously and that I felt like was pointless. You could have gotten rid of that and I would have been perfectly happy without it. There was enough problems in the game to keep it from 2 thumbs up. Instead, it's just 1. The biggest offender, the biggest reason why, if this is a problem for you, you should not buy this game, is that it is freaking hard. Ow, so hard. And I don't mean Dark Souls arousing punishment hard. It's not like a, ooh, this is, oh, I like this. No. This is like, ow, what'd you do that for? What the heck, dude? That's freaking hard. And okay. If Dark Souls is sexy, then Wolfenstein is mean. It's just plain mean. Like a playful whip compared to a cat of 9 tails kind of thing, you know? Like, ouch, oh, and then literally ripping out your flesh. Anyway, you get the point. I almost immediately dropped the difficulty down as soon as I started the game. I was getting my booty handed to me. My little Mexican booty. My booty was being handed personally to me by the game, and I didn't like that. I almost immediately dropped it down. And that's totally okay, because I think that's kind of how the game should be played. It should not be played at the normal level. I dropped it down to easy, and I even then died quite a bit. Maybe I just need to stop acting like a whiny man-child and suck it up, but it did legitimately take away from my enjoyment of the game, so I want you to be aware of that. It's a difficult game. If you like the difficulty, if you like having these horrible things happen to you, then go for it. Just lowering the difficulty does handle this problem for you, so it even doesn't become too much of an issue, but it is something I want you to be aware of. Honestly, Wolfenstein: The New Order is a fantastic and surprising FPS that holds up really well over 4 years later, and I can't wait to play the DLC and sequel. I'm going to wait for it to come out on Switch at the end of the month, and then I'll check that out and let you guys know. Thanks for watching my very first Bard's Backlog review. Be sure to subscribe for more reviews, more Backlog impressions, and reactions to all things video games. I'm going to be doing a series going through shovelware and telling you which ones are successful and which ones you should just not cut the chips and buy. I don't think that's an actual phrase, but whatever. See you all next time. This has been Bard's Backlog. You're not going to see any of this, so it's not a problem. This is freaking tiring, you know that? I did not realize that YouTubers exhibited so much energy, and I'm sitting. I have to sit for this whole thing. This is a pain in the butt. Not really, because I'm sitting, and it's pretty comfortable. But my figurative butt. The other one. Yeah, not my main one. My main one's... Anyway, let's start over.